Welcome to episode 3 of Following Flames. I am Joe McGuire along with Robbie McCluskey. Thank you so much for tuning in. Got a really cool show today. We're gonna talk about flip phones and
space age technology,
the superiority in some cases of flip phones. And when you brought this up to me, I told you I got a story that'll validate your belief. So we are going to hit that. We're going to talk about some things that you just don't do to another man. The rules that should have been laid out at the first campfire.
Mm-hmm. The kind of things that would probably make you be like, okay, I think about that person differently if they actually do them.
Right on. Right on. I mean, I'm sure we've all had a buddy who dated an ex, a serious ex. Not cool, you know?
One example.
Like yeah. We're also going to talk about breakups.
Speaking of dating exes.
Yeah, you and I, in having chatted earlier today, have come to the conclusion that we're pretty good at breaking up with chicks.
Yep. And stay tuned to find out what we mean by pretty good at breaking up with chicks.
And we're going to start things off with a topic that you wanted to talk about. And it's interesting because I can speak to this on a couple of levels. Are you a millennial?
I think I'm technically one of the last, if not the last, the second to last year of the wide millennial range, but I'm a 94 kid. So if you want to consider that millennial, if that's just like somebody that got dragged into the era of millennials, but doesn't really qualify, I'll let you be the judge of that. But technically I will take that title if it benefits me.
I've seen that unusual chart where if you're born in a couple of years in between some of these things, you're just sort of nothing. You're just sort of not grouped. So nobody can boomer you. You know, you're not a Gen X, or you're not a millennial or a zillennial or whatever the crap these other kids, whatever they are.
You're a non-memeable era of people.
Yeah, it's funny as a Gen X person, let me say two things. Number one, our parents failed us. Number two, we have failed our children. In such a big way. I was trying to explain to my son, he's suddenly into the American Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked what an American soldier, a colonialist soldier would have looked like, colonist soldier would have looked like. And I said, I could show you pictures. And he said, you took your camera back in time and took a picture. I said, no, they didn't have cameras then. And he said, now do they have a picture? And I said, they have sketch drawings. And, obviously remnants of uniforms of people that wore them, and some I'm sure preserved them very well. And so we have evidence that that's what it would look like. You could put it on a modern person.
Many of them are probably passed down in families. So,
oh, absolutely. Along with their white sheets.
Are we talking Revolutionary or Civil War?
I don't know. What are we talking about? Anywho, point being, I explained to this kid that there's pictures, and that in my own lifetime, it's kind of a new phenomenon. I grew up with, we had a computer in our classroom when I got to like sixth grade. Nobody used it. It was just there. Sometimes on a Friday, maybe you're playing Oregon Trail. It's about it. You die of dysentery. Yes. Next guy's up. So yeah, you're an unusually aged person, but you're also a very mature person for whatever one of those categories you fall into. So be proud of yourself.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the person I am, especially considering the person I could have been. Especially because most parents, I don't know if I mentioned this previously, but a lot of parents of friends that I grew up with come up to me and they're like, I really expected you to be just a catastrophe and of an adult. Or like, they're like, you turned out so much better than any of us expected. And I'm just like, oh, thank you very much. It's great to know I had zero support when I was a kid, but It's just like everyone was just like, nah, let's just watch this like a reality TV show. We have lessons that we could teach this kid, but let's just see if he really collapses like we expect.
You mentioned this earlier that you live with your your grandfather you live
I'm
with?
currently helping. Yeah, I'm currently staying with my grandpa, helping him because he's more recently on his own, and we're getting him out. It's a lot like if you've seen the movie. Um, it might be What a Girl Wants? It's an Amanda Bynes movie, or like no, it's not She's the Man. I think it's What a Girl Wants, where she finds out that her dad's like a British politician, and then she goes over there and unleashes his wild side. I'm essentially the Amanda Bynes of this royal palace right here. Um, just throwing a bit of youth back into the equation, getting him caught up to speed with the modern generation, and by that I mean understanding like what DVR is and how there are other things than basic cable. But yeah, it's a great environment, and I get to learn a lot of stuff from him. He's a wealth of knowledge of history, especially American history. We don't necessarily agree on a lot of things politically, but my God, if I haven't had just been smacked by uh, a train-sized weight of historical knowledge, um, it's been very beneficial thus far. But actually, sorry, I went on a tangent there. What did you want to? What were you going to bring up?
Well, you're living with your grandpa,
Yep.
but I mean, you're talking about you want to buy a house,
Yes,
and
I would love to
not.
buy a house.
It's an unusual time right now. There is a severe housing shortage. The National Association of Realtors estimates about 3 million homes short of the goal that we need.
Yeah, I heard it was 5, but yeah, in the millions of houses, like people demanding them. The demand is there, but the supply is drastically undercutting what we actually need.
The 3 million figure comes from Freddie Mac. So I don't know where you got 5 million from.
Just word of mouth, man. Just word of mouth.
It might have gotten worse since the article I read was published. Now, I will tell you this. I'm a realtor. So I see this from a couple of standpoints. I'm also a homeowner. The value of my home is skyrocketed to the point where I don't care for my neighbors at all, to be honest. My wife likes people. It's not for me, but
Mhm.
I'd love to. I mean, I could make some serious scratch if I sold this place right now. We can't do it.
'Cause you'd have to spend some serious scratch to find a place to replace it with.
I would buy something 10 times smaller than the house that I live in currently, and I don't really care where people sleep.
Mhm. And you've got a
Yeah.
lot of people that need need places to sleep.
Yeah, this is there's, 3 kids live here, my wife, myself, my older daughter's out, which is nice.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, nobody cleans, everybody breaks stuff. I have to try to fix it. I don't know what I'm doing.
How
Terrible
hard was
idea.
it for you to well, 1, when did you get your house, and, like, was it seen as overcoming, like, a very challenging obstacle getting a home?
So I'll tell you this, in 2008, I was poor, and I met my to-be wife in 2009. I had my 2 daughters,
Mhm.
and I had not much money in the bank. And 2 years later, we bought the house that we're in now, which is valued at $508,000. We bought it for 335,000 in 2011. And I'll tell you a funny story that goes along with that. My wife is a lawyer. I've been a broadcaster for 25 years
And a real estate agent, a lawyer
and
and
a
a
real
real es
estate agent for 15
that's a
years.
power couple right there, a lawyer and a real
Yeah.
estate agent.
Now, it's funny. We both just had to do continuing education for our respective fields,
Of
which is
course.
required every other year. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. My wife still got massive student loans, and we bought this house, and her cousins came over to install the TVs to the wall, mounted to the wall. I don't know how
Mhm.
to do that. And dude looks around the house and he looks at me, like a 3,000 square foot colonial, a nice joint with a pool. This guy says to me, "You guys are so lucky." I was like, "Lucky? What? You think I hit the lotto, bro?" Like 2 years ago, I was flat broke, and now I'm like the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, working hard and having a plan. My wife and I met in 2009. We got engaged in 2010. We got married the next year. We bought a house the next year and then had a baby the next year.
And then
Planned.
and then after that, you want to go to Dave and Buster's?
Yeah. Chaos.
Very, very,
Um,
very lackluster year following those 5.
a funny story. When I bought my house too, the original price on the house was $399.
Okay.
They dropped it to $349. And again, I'm a realtor. So this doesn't normally happen where the realtor's dealing with the realtor who's the buyer.
Yeah.
And my wife and I talked about what we wanted to offer. I told her what my initial offer was going to be, knowing where they would counter, and that we would take the counter because the counter was actually really where I was comfortable being.
Mm-hmm.
I called the listing agent, and the first thing she said to me was, "If you want that pool filled in, we can get gravel and done." I was like, "No, I love the pool. It's actually what brought me to the house." I was like, "Why?" I go to people don't like pools.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was like if there was something wrong with that, if it was just like that they've come across people that don't want. And yours is an in-ground too, so it's not like, it has that kind of out of ground negative stigma with it sometimes, like people don't want to look at an out of ground. Yours is nice and it's all tied together well.
Thank you. And I told you I finally got it running. It's funny, dude. We could do a whole show on this, but trying to find reliable contractors is, as a realtor and a homeowner, hard.
Yeah.
And I found this website. They contract people out. It's like general. I don't even think these guys were insured. They came over my house, and like an hour later, my pool was fine. And this morning they came back because I had a problem with my kitchen sink, and they fixed that in like 15 minutes. Efficient. They're fast. They show up early. They show up on time, and they leave. That is, I'm telling you, currency in the
That
new
sh-
world order.
that should be the regular, but it almost feels like hitting the jackpot when that actually happens.
It's a funny story. I don't know if I ever told you this. The movie Pineapple Express.
That's about the devil's lettuce, correct?
Yes, sir, it is. And so I went to see my guy, and he was on the telephone with his ex-wife, and they were screaming at each other. And I held out the cash. Just give me my stuff. I want to get out of here. And he like motions for me to sit down. So
This is exactly like that Seth Rogen, like they want to hang out with you're not their friend. They're not your
Dude,
friend.
the first time I went to his house, this guy broke out a photo album with concert tickets and told me a story that went along with each ticket. That was our first time hanging out. It was the first time I met him. I'm like, dude, I just want to get in and get out. I had
And he's just like, oh no, sorry, man, I'm all out.
I went grocery shopping once, purposely, so I could tell him I got ice cream and milk. I got to get that stuff home. I was still there 45 minutes with the car running. He's that kind of guy. Anyway, he's screaming at his ex-wife, asked me to sit down. Then he puts the phone on. He's like, hey, I need to talk to you about this when I'm done. I need some advice. What? Robbie, I'm not even playing. I sat there for like 15 more minutes. 2 fucking contractors came in and out, 10 seconds. Money, drugs, gone. Next guy comes in, same thing.
That's why you can't be the first person to arrive at a dealer's place. I'm willing to bet these guys knew this dealer and they were just waiting for somebody, like some schmuck, to walk in, and then they're like, Okay, give it 10
Yeah,
minutes.
make a
All
break
right,
for the door.
now we can go in and get our stuff really quickly. That sucker took the fall.
Here's the other funny thing. I met this dude through my ex-wife. And the second time I went to see him, smokes you up, want to go
Yep.
for a walk. No, I'm not. I don't want to go. He's like, let's walk this off. I don't want to walk it off. I don't want to walk and I don't want to lose this. So, no.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go home. Dude, come on, come for a walk with me.
If somebody asked me to come for a walk, I would assume I would be getting mugged.
This guy is friends with my ex-wife. I don't know him.
Yeah.
I met him like a week earlier and I had to look at his photo album. Now he wants to go for a walk. And we go for this walk. He lives right next to a cemetery. Hey, we'll cut through the cemetery. It's pitch black. And we're walking through the cemetery and I'm high. And I thought to myself, I could walk into a hole right now. And this dude's just like, cover me right up and goes right back home. That could have happened.
That's probably a cemetery that's only there since he moved in.
That's hilarious. Yeah. People were like, dude, find a different guy. And I was like, you know how hard it is? This was like 10 years ago. Look how hard it is to find a guy, you know? And I stayed with it. I stayed with him for like 2 years. You know what the final straw was? I had texted him for a couple of days. And he get back to me. Finally, like the third day, I stopped by his house and I asked him, I said, hey, I've been hitting you up the last few days. You always get right back to me. Oh, the cops had my phone. What's that now? Long story short, his dad was slapping his mom around. He intervened. Father pulled a gun and shot at him. Missed, but took a shot at him. And he ran out and left his cell phone behind. The cops arrested his dad. And as things sort of shook out, his phone was just at the police station for a few days. And I'm like, hey, dude, got any pizza? You know, not cool. As if the cops wouldn't know what that means at this point. Like, this guy doesn't work at Domino's, right?
It's like cops know that pizza is like it's gonna,
what basic bitches say.
Oh, I would like a slice of pizza. They're like, okay, that guy's getting an eighth. It's like, dude, you got to get with the modern times. It's like, I would like some unlimited breadsticks, please. Cops are like, oh man, what? This guy, they're probably just getting an Italian dinner.
That's nice. They're going to the Olive Garden.
Keep driving, boys. It's tough times. These guys are saving money.
I will tell you this. Getting back to the topic we were on.
Yes, the housing markets.
I do think buying a house is not a bad idea. The rates are up. The rates aren't going to be up forever. You'll be able to refinance on your house.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just so like what made me kind of think about this initially was especially when I was in my early 20s. So many people were like, I'd love to own a house by the time I'm 30. It's almost like I didn't know it until I got older. It seems like a very basic kind of goal for a lot of people to have. But like, I'm on the back nine of my 20s now, and having a house by the time I'm 30, especially now, unless there's just a catastrophic collapse in the market where everything becomes dirt cheap, I just can't fathom it, especially probably because of the supply shortage, the housing shortage. But I was looking for a condo even just down in North Carolina, probably in the worst spot to be looking, which was Research Triangle Park, where Apple is moving, not like completely relocating, but they're opening a big Apple headquarters there. Pretty much any kind of technology, biotech industry, a lot of firms are going into the Research Triangle Park area. A lot already are there, but every condo I would go to see, it was pretty much, they were like, oh, we're not going to start showing it until like next Saturday, but it's likely not going to be available after Tuesday. So if you'd like to like put in an offer, it's already going for like 40 over, sight unseen. Like, these people haven't even been there. And I'm just like, just 27-year-old guy. I'm 28 now, but at the time I was 27. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go back to my little condo or my little apartment and make some angel hair pasta and go back to not living in a house and just throw that idea out of my head.
So, according to Business Insider, they've got research that predicts not even half of the millennial generation will ever own a home in their lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the kind of person that would be very cool living in like a really isolated environment, but as far as being like in a city or even just kind of like a more bustling suburb, that seems progressively more like an immense challenge as far as the way housing is being built. Like, you know what we need? What were those after World War II, those like 20-minute homes? Do you remember those? They just built them up in 20 minutes essentially. They were terrible quality, but like pretty
Yeah.
much everybody came home. It was in New York. Wow, I gotta look these up because they were their own little cities. I don't know. I feel like we're building a lot of really nice houses and not enough like lower income, kind of fringe middle class housing areas. I mean, as far as what I've seen, they all kind of look like those like um McMansion style regular size houses in just massive like cookie cutter forms, especially out in the Midwest. It just becomes like flatlands and then just giant copycat neighborhoods all over the place. Um,
The Midwest and the South is where the housing shortage is at its peak. It's actually worse in those sections. Here's another interesting piece of information. Over 80% of millennials who recently bought a home have a significant regret about the process or the house itself, including inconvenient locations, bad fits with neighborhoods, decreased home value, and ending up with a fixer upper, which at this point is probably, kind of more in the ballpark of what you're looking at.
yeah, and I personally wouldn't mind finding a house to fix up, but
You know how to do
even
stuff?
huh?
You know how to do stuff, or would you have to pay
I
somebody?
I mean, I try to do as much as it like I do as much work on my cars as I can. If I need to build something, I'll usually research as much. If I don't already have the tools, like I kind of go all those routes unless it becomes like an area where I really need a professional, maybe some more detailed like decor aspects or like the framing around doors, stuff like that. More precise stuff, I would definitely try and find a professional to do, but like working with wood and a lot of other stuff, like I learned a lot of that from my dad, so I don't feel completely inept. But if I end up having a house with someone who's a very high maintenance lady, then I'd probably have to just go for a professional the entire way through because I am not as detail oriented as a lot of other people. So I'd just be like, oh yeah, there's a lot of scratches in the wood there, and we can't paint over it, but I can live with it. I'm an I can live with it kind of guy a lot of the time.
Hey, listen, I pride myself on being a roll with the punches kind of guy. I think
That's
that's
kind of
the
how I was raised.
I don't think there's a better way to live, dude. I mean, don't get too high with the highs and too low with the lows. Just
Find
do
the
your thing.
balance. Hmm.
I mean, every day's a challenge, and every day you're just fighting to survive. Some days are good, some weeks, some months, years, stretches of but everyone, even the richest people are gonna have tough times with something
Well,
and something to overcome.
it's been shown in studies that those who go through severe negative experiences and those who have like extremely positive experiences, like someone who makes a lot more money the next year, and as opposed to someone who goes into homelessness or is just being stricken by poverty. They studied both people, and like a year after those transitions, they found out that they just kind of their perception of everything just kind of balanced in the middle. So they that high of like having a lot of benefits or money or perks to the way you live only lasted a fairly similar amount of time to like the feelings, like the negative feelings after a catastrophic event. So no matter what your situation, humans are almost programmed to just kind of normalize things and get back to that middle point of feeling like, yeah, everything's just kind of normal, everything's regular, even though it could be completely different from just a year before, where you're like, oh my god, everything is so much better, my life is completely changed. And then you just kind of normalize it and be like, everything's regular, even though you could be completely on two completely different ends of the spectrum. And I always thought that was kind of fascinating, but that's also, finding the balance in things when you've gotten so used to having like a higher quality of living, or that you've just come to accept like a much lower quality of life. I would assume that's also a survival aspect, where it's like, okay, I have to adapt to this circumstance and either not think it's like, not always be high on it, or not always be down on myself about it. And just kind of keep on progressing or carrying on with how things are. I would assume that's a survival, like some kind of survival wiring in your brain function. But I'm not sure, because I just thought it was fascinating how that panned out in those studies.
I think it's important not settle in a situation, and or like you said, you kind of roll with the punches to a point where you do have to punch back occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
I got divorced in 2008. We almost bought a house in 2005 and 2006. And in both cases, something told me not to do it, and I didn't. And by 2007, we were on our way, and by 2008, it was over. She told me her father was dying of cancer in Atlanta, and wanted my kids to get to know her dad before he passed. And she looked him in the eyes and told them. They cried. They agreed to go with her. 3 weeks they were going to go to Georgia. Her father didn't have cancer. That was a lie.
Oh my God.
Yeah. She was trying to move to Atlanta, and then asked me to basically sign the kids over to her in Atlanta. And so I went. I got a lawyer. This is great. You're going to love this. And the lawyer was like, just get her back here. Like, however, I'm like, can I lie? Do whatever you want. He's like, just get her back here. And I called her up, and the best part wasn't, she's so dumb. Her mom kept an online blog, which is how I found out what was going on. Somebody tipped me off to this blog, and it was like I was a step ahead of her on everything, and she never knew why. And when I confront them,
blog?
I didn't know the day she left, like about 6 hours after she left, I got a phone call from somebody, and I almost didn't answer it because it's not a person I talk to. And they were like, bro, you got to see this. This is serious. And
oh my God.
I was like, oh my God. But the best part was it was updated that day.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally, like, hey, now her plans to do this. And it's like, oh, hey, and I would call her, but is your plan to do this? No. Where would you get that from? So I said, listen, her brother was getting married. I was like, 2 days after your brother's wedding, you got to bring the kids back to Connecticut. I said, if you come up here, I'll sign them over to you. We can work out some kind of deal. And she came back, and she wasn't home for 5 minutes when the marshal showed up and served her ass with divorce papers. That was yeah, it was she flipped out. How could you do this to me? Yeah, I was like, yeah, dude. We're good.
How could you do this when this is just like a retaliatory scheme, kind of?
And then she signed the kids over to me. And then 4 years later, signed the kids over to my wife now. So that was a pretty good breakup.
Can we just get a clappity clap for the fact that you're like, you're a man getting your kids, which is, even in like the wrong circumstances, or even when it's the right thing, it's not always an easy thing to pull.
Oh, Robbie, let me tell you something. I can't think of the woman's name with the New Haven Superior Court, New Haven, Connecticut. That's where our family law stuff played out initially. Then it went up to Hartford, and they dealt with it a lot better. Two things happened to me. Number one, every time I walk in the court, they like tried to shuffle me off with the losers, and I was like, no, this cute redhead's gonna go sit with those guys, not me. So it was always a bunch of moms, me, and a bunch of dudes, and my wife. And one particular time I showed up for court and she didn't show up. And
Ooh.
the judge thanked me. I was also dressed in a suit, which is what you wear to court. If you don't, you're an idiot and you're going to get whatever severe penalty this guy's looking the dish.
Yes,
Because
that's
you're
one of the easiest ways to not piss someone off is to just like, even if you don't look like a well-kept person, if you show up with a nice like shirt, tie, suit preferably, they're going to be like, okay, they understand the environment.
every man looks good in a suit, even fat people wear a suit.
Mhm.
Goes a long way. And this guy
Just
thanked
ask
me for
President Taft.
yeah. There you go. I love that. 312 pounds. Got stuck in the White House bathtub once. Did the grease his fat ass out.
Yeah. But he looked
But
good during it because he always bathed in a suit.
that's hilarious. He thanked me for showing up in a suit. And I lambasted the court. And I mentioned to him, I'm like, every time I come in here, I get treated like shit for the first few minutes until they realize that I'm a plaintiff, not a defendant.
Yep.
And that's not right. Now, we went to family relations. If I could remember the woman's name, I would curse it because she's such a scumbag. Doesn't know anything about my ex-wife and just insisted that these girls should be with their mom more. And I was like, you don't know this person. She's an evil, evil, horrible person. No. Not doing
Yep.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And Deb Kern, that's her name. Scumbag. Again, just insistent. Like they're girls that need to be with their mom. I'm like, their mom's a scumbag. They don't need to be with her.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to be with a pathological liar who's got like multiple personality. They don't need that. As it were, 4 years later, they basically told their mom to screw off. And that's when my wife adopted them officially.
Well, that's just like a clear cut kind of fork in the road for your kids. And I mean, good on it's, I can't even imagine them being able to, or them going through it. But like, from when I've met your kids, like they got good heads on their shoulders. Like it's almost like the fork in the road that could be a very different result to that.
Oh, yeah.
Which
Oh,
actually could segue me into the next topic that I wanted to talk about, or
yeah,
like
listen,
the
you know
path
what?
of
Real
being
quick,
raised properly.
I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, if you guys both became drug addict losers, nobody would have blamed you. People would have been like, no, they went through a lot of shit. So,
Well, I would say that the proper path had panned out to be what is the path that they're on, as opposed to like what the possibilities could be, which kind of ties into something that I mentioned last week, which was I think I just kind of jumped over it or highlighted it last week, but I mentioned that there was on Fox News because living with my grandpa, Fox News is on in the background a lot of times, so I hear a lot of what's on it. There was a commercial with Mike Huckabee advertising what they call the Kids Guide to President Donald Trump, and it's I always compare it to like Sports Illustrated for kids magazines or like Zoo Books, if you remember those wonderful commercials from like the early 2000s and 90s. And I've got like a bunch of pages up on this because my initial intent was to just go into this. They were like, get the free guide, the free first guide to Donald Trump. And I was like, okay, regardless of political stance or regardless of how like whatever side I'm on different areas, this just seems very cult like. So obviously I was like, okay, I'm going to go sign up and get my free kids guide to President Donald Trump. So I go on their website and I'm like going through the entire process. And they get to like, I'm going through it and they've got a very short terms and conditions section as opposed to like Apple, which might have like hundreds of pages on theirs. I was like, you know what? I'm going to read their terms and conditions. And in the very second paragraph, it was like talking about how you'll get your first free guide with you just have to pay like $1 for the shipping fee or whatever. And then I'm still reading it, and it's like you will also be subscribed to the regular delivery monthly of like kids guides to President Trump and materials from Everbright Media. And I was like, okay, that sounds like usually like it's opt in or opt out stuff. And one of the things, it was like you'll be subscribed to this for just $21.90 a month, as well each month for only $77.95 for this other thing, and you can cancel at any time. So I keep reading, I'm like diving in, I'm like, okay, let's see how difficult it is to cancel. And it's like you have to call this number or like send us a
And
letter.
ask for Jerry. He's only there
Yes.
Wednesday afternoons. Yeah.
Pretty much just like send us a written message or call us and leave a message to cancel your subscription. And I just thought, I was like, this is like, this doesn't even have an online option. And then just out of the corner of my mind, I was like, I wonder if it's harder to cancel a porn subscription than it is to cancel the Kids Guide subscription. So I literally,
You did it.
I went and signed up to test it. I found like the cheapest website with like a discount code. I signed up and I was like, okay, let's see how tough it is to get out of this. So I then got out of that. Also, I ended up changing my credit card information just so I don't get screwed over. I just said like I lost my credit card, so they sent me a new one with different information. But I was able to just get in touch with, or like immediately go in and cancel the subscription. So I determined the fact that it's harder to unsubscribe from Mike Huckabee's Kids Guide than it is to unsubscribe from some like Armpit of America internet porn site. But continuing my research, I was like, okay, we now realize that it's kind of like predatory. So I scrolled down to the bottom of the page and there were like 10 other kind of like companies, like Learn Our History, Money Bright Kids, which is like the kids' guides to economics, Family Bible Films. So I start going to all of these and it's very similarly laid out and stuff, but it seems like very far kind of like right-wing culty-ish kids guides, and the animation I just like to say is god awful from what I can tell. You know, it's they should be ashamed of their animators, unless it's like an amateur animator, in which case keep working at it, dude. You'll get somewhere someday.
You'll get there eventually. There you go.
Yeah, but so I'm looking at it and they're all like, this is a product of Everbright Media. So I start looking into Everbright Media and it turns out to be like everywhere I go has the same link, and I'm like, okay, I'll go to the website. It never loads. Like the website link doesn't work at all. Apparently this was made in like 2011 and they're like considered one of the fastest like growing education providers for young children. And I guess they're banking on people that want to like almost homeschool their kids, because their message a lot of the time is like, don't trust the regular educators or the media because they're not teaching you what your kids should know and stuff like this. And I start diving down like the Better Business Bureau rabbit hole of Everbright Media, and almost every single review is like people finding that they've either been erroneously subscribed for these extra services. So at one time, without any opt-in or opt-out option, you can subscribe accidentally to like multiple things, but then for them to be properly canceled, you have to get in touch with those multiple locations individually. So it's like your information is being shared across these different platforms that they might send you like different types of like offerings that they have, and it just becomes like a lot of the time they'll even start like messaging information to kids, apparently like sending kid addressed like almost like junk mail through the mail. And a lot of these are like, oh, this is a predatory company, and that's pretty much the entire like summarization that I found just diving deeply into this quickly. And there aren't a lot of news organizations that I looked at. They told me a bit about it. Some of them could be arguably biased, so I always take stuff like that with a grain of salt. But the main thing that I'm finding is that it seems like a lot of people just, it's almost like the NFL until they post something as like a review that they aren't able to get in touch with people to unsubscribe from this. And that it's almost like it's like a predatory company that's trying to sell you these educational platforms, but they just lock you in and try to like make it so they sneak other subscriptions by you and then like use your info for that purpose. And I even went to their Facebook page and they haven't posted anything since like 2016. So I don't know what the deal is with this, but they're literally advertising all the time on Fox News. But everywhere I just dive into it, it's just it's like a creepier, sketchy, predatory type of like teach your kids the all the good things about America. It's kind of terrifying that it like when I come across this, I'm just like, obviously it's a scam online. If something pops up like this, I'm like, okay, this almost looks fake. But for it to be advertised like prime time commercials on Fox News, I was just like, that is a very odd line to cross when this is all looking super sketchy. Um,
Yeah. Last week we talked about January 6th. The latest from that, by the way, they're now calling it the big ripoff.
mhm.
Immediately after January 6th, the Trump campaign took in $250 million in donations for the Election Defense Fund, which was never created. There isn't really one of those. The money went to the Save America Political Action Committee and went to pro-Trump organizations headed by officials close to his inner circle. I mean, again, if you're falling for somebody's nonsense and it's costing you money, what are you doing? Are you in a cult?
I would also say there's dirty money on both sides, but let me just say as clearly as I possibly can, if somebody has to deal with legal troubles that don't involve you at all, don't donate money to bail them out of something, especially because a lot of these things like I've seen people like donate trying to like start an I actually think like a GoFundMe got shut down that was trying to raise money to cover Amber Heard's um court fees, and I'm just like, don't send these people money, or like why are on either side
That's
it's
how
like,
stupid people are.
yeah, it's like ooh, I mean, I kind of think like even sending money to like almost like video game streaming, like I understand, I think it's weird that people just throw tons and tons of just random money, like it's like, oh, I enjoyed this, like $5. I get that if you're like your own um like production and everything, but when a lot of people have a bunch of sponsorships and make a bunch of other stuff, and then they also get just like people being like, "Oh, let me support you." It's like, no, they've like got a support network. They're getting their money. Like they've got advertisers. You don't need to be throwing a lot of money. It's almost like me buying a ticket to a movie and then being like, "Oh, sweet. I really like that movie. Hey, Tom Hanks, I want to Venmo you $10 because I really just liked your like Mr. Rogers movie." I don't like, people are getting paid to do things, and then I don't understand why the individual person has to then throw money at them as well. And it's like, especially in these court cases where people are like, oh, free this criminal or whatever, or free this person who did a horrible thing. And then they're like, GoFundMe is set up to pay for their legal troubles, when it's just like, when you look at it, it's like, oh, this guy murdered somebody, but he was popular on Instagram or something. So everyone's just like, funnel money to him. We can save him. We can get our guy back.
Robbie, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm going to guess something about you, and maybe I'm wrong. You look like the guy in your group that if we were all going to the movies, everybody would Venmo you and you would buy all the tickets. Am I right?
That's honestly, I'm the kind of guy that would start to do that. And if I realized that there was like a $2 service fee online, I'd be like, you know what? Let's all meet at the same time so we can save those $2 and we'll just get the tickets at the theater. I am usually, if it's like, Yeah, I'm usually the guy trying to plan ahead, like, because especially now, a lot of places have assigned seats. So I don't want to end up going there and be like, oh, half of our guys have to sit 3 rows back on the opposite side. But yeah, I'm usually that kind of guy.
Where do you stand on splitting bills?
Like in dating
Splitting a check?
situations,
No, just the homies. Just the boys are out. We spend like $200. There's four of us. Everybody throwing $50 in and then a tip, or you had 6 drinks. I didn't drink. Are you pay? How do you do it?
I mean, I'm not breaking down the check. I'm usually just like, oh, that like we all
Do you know
got like
people that do that?
I know people that do that. I also know people that like that break
Did
down
you
the
think?
check, but I also know people that just don't even think about it if like they got 1 drink and someone else got like 5 and then just like, yeah, we can split it. Like I know people on both ends, but I'm the kind of person who's like, he got a couple drinks, he got one, he might have gotten like a dessert, but we all got entrees. If it's just like all that stuff, I'm just like, who cares? Like we can split it evenly. Like we don't need to think about it too much. It's probably just a couple dollars extra. But if there's like a noticeable difference, I'll be like, hey man, nah, fam, I'm not. I'll pass my credit card the other way.
I'm not that guy in my group by any stretch. The guy that coordinates, or I'm the guy that throws in. One of my buddies, when he does it in a really cool way. He looks at the bill and he's like, Robbie, give me 30. Joe, give me 25. And he goes around and he gets it's everyone's amount is a little bit. And he's not adding up exact totals, but he's kind of ballparking, and it's tips included, and we all hand him that money. He gets it all. He gives it to the gal or the
Yeah,
dude, whatever. That's a good way to do it.
yeah, it's kind of along the lines of what I'm doing more. Yeah, like just like I'll calculate the total, be like they got more. It's like, you know what, man, this will cover it. Whatever, figure it all out. Don't need to make it too complicated.
Yeah, exactly. Um, there are, there's been. It's funny. Over the last couple of years in baseball, there's been a lot of talk about the unwritten rules, swinging 3-0 when you're
Which
when
I
you're
I
blowing
hate.
teams out. You hate that people are doing it or that they're complaining about it.
I hate that in this day and age, certain things are like unwritten rules. Well, in baseball, in particular, I think there are like so many unwritten rules that people are like, "Oh, you broke those. You're kind of a terrible person." Like, there was one not too long ago. It was like somebody got somebody had to apologize because they hit a grand slam.
Oh, yeah, the kid on the White Sox,
Yeah, it
and
was
he
wasn't
was
his like his first grand slam or something like
yeah,
or
and he was like
first
a
game.
breakout star, and
Yeah,
his idiot manager, Tony La Russa, had chastised him after the game for it, and about a month later, the kid ended up in the minor leagues. It just went downhill from there.
yeah, that fueled me. It's like if you're gonna almost scold someone because of just like a really petty unwritten rule instead of congratulating them on a really good performance, that really pisses me off. It's almost just like, dude, like this is a professional sport. This is a competition. Like unwritten rules, the people that on like unwritten rules, there are certain things that I guess like you could abide by as just like a code of conduct. But in the end, if you're gonna be like, I lost because he broke a code of conduct, then I'll just be like, no, you lost because like the fact they are already cowering behind excuses related to unwritten rules is kind of a losing attitude to me. I hate that stuff. When you rely on unwritten rules or like you're like complaining about refs or umpires losing you the game, that stuff really irritates me.
Oh, I know. Well, I talk about Bill Buckner, Game 6 of the '86 World Series. It was Game 6.
Yeah, and
The
he
Red
didn't
Sox could have won it in Game 7. Oh
and it's not
three,
it's not even his fault. It was honestly the
right.
pitcher's fault that they lost that game, but everyone knows like and it gets by Buckner, the famous just everything. Like the Red Sox pitching in that game was really the problem. And Buckner pretty much essentially lost his life because of the blame being put on him just because people were so impulsive and just like tunnel vision to that one play.
Do you remember Steve Bartman, the Chicago Cubs fan? Game 6, game 6 against the Marlins. This guy goes to catch a foul ball that Moises Alou was trying to reach into the stands and catch. Bartman caught it. The Marlins ended up scoring and then winning that game, and everybody in Chicago blamed Steve Bartman for the curse continuing. And it's like, that was the 7th inning of game 6. Could have came back at game 7. That's not Steve Bartman's fault. It's so dumb. By the way, Yermin Mercedes was the kid's name last May with the White Sox that hit the grand slam that we were just talking about. Yermin Mercedes.
I thought you said your mean Mercedes. I was like, do I have a car poster behind me? That caught me off guard.
Mercedes. Nope.
That's a mean Mercedes, but I still buy American.
You're not I'm not a fan of the unwritten rules in sports. I think that's stupid.
Yeah,
There's enough written rules in sports that I don't think you need unwritten rules that you can't break. I also in high school bunted in a perfect game situation and got a hit. So that doesn't do anything for me.
Dude, in Little League, they thought certain situations for stealing were like cheap, and I stole home when the catcher threw the ball back to the pitcher. I just took off for home and got a score, and they were like, that was a very like kind of scumbaggy move. And I was like,
oh yeah, dude,
I was just like, yeah, but that one is still on the board,
right? Dance around the bases. Dude, we used to do that where you take the big lead off at first when there's a guy on third, like, come get me.
Yeah,
oh god, did that all the time. I also just because I'm insane, anytime there was a bobble on a throw to first, I would hit first base and just immediately go to second. I mean, round it like I'd ripped one off the fence. And I found in about 90% of the cases, when the first baseman would scramble to pick up the ball and throw to second, and you're out by a mile, he's just got to make a good throw. With you in his running lane, and when you slide with the arms up. Take a ball off the arm or the head, that's fine. More often than not, though, they would just throw the ball in the left field.
Yeah, I used to try to employ, this was also in Little League, so
yeah, we're not suggesting the Yankees try.
I'm not sure. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is actually an illegal rule, but I used to try the freaking like Willie Mays Hayes thing from Major League 2 where there'd be a pop-up and I'd be like running the bases yelling, I got it. And then so he'd like back off and I'd just laugh as the ball hits the ground. That actually, I got out a couple times from doing that, but other times people that didn't know the rule, they were just like, oh, that's a heads up play by McCluskey over there. And I'm just like, oh, sweet. That got me out 2 weeks ago. But yeah, little stuff like that. Also, if it adds like humorous character to a situation, I'm all for it. I'm all for stuff like that. And if like a lot of those times, those unwritten rules are like things related to head, like playing with people's minds, just like head games, just to because sometimes, you're physically outmatched, or they have really good coaching and they're just like coached up. And then sometimes you're just like the team of Sean Averys or Brad Marchands, and you're just going to piss people off enough to throw them off their game so much that you end up winning. And that is a lot of the time what I think the unwritten rules are trying to prevent. So I really hate unwritten rules for that reason. And well, in sports more so, I think what might have sparked the topic of this conversation a little bit was like how I told you earlier that I was overhearing somebody talking about how their car got keyed because somebody was angry at them, and I just thought back to the famous line from Pulp Fiction about with John Travolta after his car got keyed. He's just like, "You just don't mess with another man's vehicle," and I'm just like, I know that's an unwritten rule, but I got to follow it. And if I'm ever mad at somebody, it's weird, but I know how to destroy vehicles way more than I know how to like get back at people in a million other ways. So I'm just like, I could put bologna on their car, or like I could piss in their gas tank, or my favorite would be like get those tubes of insulator caulk and then just freeze them and chop off one end of them. So you throw them into their car, and as they thaw, they just fill their car with foam. It destroys the car and you have to get a new one. But I always thought that'd be pretty funny to do.
Yeah. See,
But like, I'm just
that's
like,
too
I can't
much.
do it. Yeah, I can't do
Yeah.
it because I like when a car breaks just on its own, it's one of the most irritating things. And I'm just like, I can't stoop to the level of like destroying or even just scratching someone's car because I'm a huge car guy and I love it. So that's actually an unwritten rule that I refuse to break.
Well,
I guess
I
the
think
bro code in that one, but
that's the other thing, dude, right? To me, you got to be a car guy for me to hurt you by keying your car. That's your
yeah.
baby. If you keyed my car would just have scratches on it for the next 5 or 6 years till I get a new one. I wouldn't do anything about that. If you slash my tires, I work from home and I call AAA. So that wouldn't like it wouldn't be like, "No, Betsy." God.
Yeah,
I don't
but
I don't care.
at that point, I'm not hurting you. I'm hurting me because I'm just like, it's essentially it would be the same for me if I like. I mean, I'm a huge music lover. I love vinyl. If I also got mad at somebody who loved vinyl and had like rare like Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd albums and I like just scratched it, I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm getting back at him," but I'd also just be like, "Oh, I'm destroying the thing that I love." So it's like it's crossing
Yeah,
those lines where it's like I have a huge respect for this type of
it's a real catch-22 there.
yeah, it's yeah. So that's why the car thing really affects me. You know, I don't want to destroy the things I love.
I went to the Yankee game last night, which, ended on a Anthony Rizzo walk-off homer. It was insane.
I love Rizzo, but I hate the Yankees, but continue.
Dude, game ended, and I had to pee. I go into the men's room, and it was a unique situation where there's 2 dudes peeing and talking, and the only open urinal was between them. And they're literally like, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta do it," the urinal next to the occupied urinal. I didn't have any choice, obviously, but, I feel like that's a good unwritten rule. If there's open urinals, you should go to the furthest one from the person currently standing at said urinal.
Yeah, well, there's like there's always those, especially on like 5-row urinals. We used to have 5 urinals in a row in my high school because we had a big high school. And there's always the psychotic person. There's the person who will go all the way to the left one. So there's four more. And the smart person, the considerate individual, would either go for the third or the fifth one. But the psychotic person would go for the fourth one. So the 3 that are available are all next to someone. So
Yeah.
you're pretty much being like, oh, like that's the kind of person who's like, yeah, I want to be far away from someone, but I know I'm doing a bad thing by choosing this one, and I'm
Oh,
okay
yeah.
with it.
Yeah. I don't
I'd
like
like
that.
I'd like to be that kind of chaotic person that those bathrooms that have um like rows of sinks that almost look at each other. It's almost like a table of sinks in the middle, and it's like cut off at the top. You don't see them a lot, but like at some like fancy clubs, I'd like to make that with urinals. So if it's just like really busy, you're just like standing there looking directly at someone across from you. Everyone just keeps looking down.
I have a buddy. He's a fireman. He lives right near me. Our wives are really good friends, and we're cool. You
Hmm.
know, doesn't have to be anything more than that. But this guy,
He's the guy
super,
she says don't worry about.
yeah, maybe this guy's super handy. And after I get over my initial pride, he helps me fix everything that's broken at my house. The only reason he is a fireman. He broke his leg in a fire recently, so I want to send best wishes to Bill. And that's why I needed somebody because um I didn't have Bill.
Hmm.
So generally speaking, Bill's wife sends him over here when my wife bitches to her that I'm either unable to complete a task because of my skill level, or I've spent about $200 doing it myself and it's still not fixed. And that's when Bill gets called in. I'm always like, Bill, what can I get you? And he don't want anything. He don't want any money. It's an assignment from the wife. He gets it.
Mm-hmm.
Always buy pizza and beer.
Yep.
You got to do that. If you want me to help you move Saturday, we don't. I'm telling you, I'll come over to your house today at like noon. You're calling the pizza. There already should be beer there. It shouldn't even. It doesn't have to even be asked. Or God forbid you'd be like, hey, if you guys want to break for lunch, no. Get us lunch. I think that's the obvious.
Yep. That reminds me of a story very similar. And I was a lot younger, didn't really have a concept of like just the power of beer as payment for just a homie helping out. Like, I was living with these chicks in Colorado, and one of them had a girlfriend that was coming in, and I was like, "Yeah, I can pick her up at the airport." Denver International was like an hour away from me. I was like, "Yeah, no problem." So like, I wake up the next day, I drive there at like 8 in the morning. Honestly, after a while, I realized that I don't know why I went there at 8 in the morning, because she was just like, "Hey, could you pick up?" Um, I can't remember her name. I'll just say Casey. Can you pick up Casey tomorrow at the airport? I was like, yeah, sure. So for some reason, I assumed that was like early morning pickup. So I just went an hour to the Denver International in my like PJs at 8 in the morning. And I'm like waiting around, and I end up calling her after like an hour and a half. I finally get in touch with her. I was like, hey man, when is like Casey supposed to arrive? She was like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm at the airport, and like I can't find her plane on the timing sheet. And she was like, oh my God, her plane gets in at like 6:30 tonight. And I was just like, oh my God. So I'm just like,
Mhm.
I and I was like, you know what? I do not want to drive all that way again. So I literally just hung out at the Denver International Airport in my PJs for an entire day waiting for this chick to the land. I was just like on my smartphone. But when I got back, she gets back like profusely apologizes, and she works at a retirement home, and she was like, I had no idea what I was going to be able to do, so I went around and asked everyone at the retirement home how I can repay you, and all the guys just kept saying, get him a pack of beer. And that was literally it. And I was like, I spent an entire day at the airport, and I am 100% okay with just the beer, because I had no expectation for any kind of payment or anything. I was just like, yeah, I'll do it. It's a favor. But the beer, it was almost like, this is a very good thank you, and I'm sorry. Beer as just like a reward or as an apology, like a compliment to an apology, can't go wrong, unless you get the wrong type of beer, in which case I don't like IPAs, just so you know. Um, but if you ever want me to do anything for you, I don't like IPAs.
That is good to know. That is seriously good to know.
What kind of beer do you? What? Well, now just so we know, what's your beer of choice?
Oh wow. This might even be hard to believe. I'm not a beer drinker.
Mike's Hard.
Zima. Listen, I'll drink a beer if we go out to Buffalo Wild Wings or some bar like that. I'll probably get a beer if everybody's having a beer. If I show up and there's a cooler and it's I'll drink whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think all beer tastes like crap. I don't think any of it's good. It doesn't agree with me. I always feel like crap whenever I drink beer the next day. Yeah.
Hmm.
If I'm going to drink, it's usually going to be like a vodka tonic.
Those are always nice too, and they make you feel lighter. Beer's always got that heaviness to it.
It
But
does. Also, Guinness is disgusting. I remember being a kid and putting pennies in my mouth, for fun. That's what Guinness tastes like.
you must have been a really bored kid.
No, you know what it is?
Maybe you should have taken time to read The Kid's Guide to President Donald Trump, as
I had
well
a
as
copper.
Money Kids.
I had a copper deficiency, and my instincts were smart enough to know if I sucked on the pennies, that I would get the copper intake I need. I also used to lick dirt off the sidewalk. Again,
Well,
I think I
that's
had
kind of common.
low
Not even
iron.
joking. That is actually pretty common, just eating dirt and
Yeah.
stuff.
Do you know why though? It's low iron. Your body's craving it, and you're like, "Mm." Yeah,
Hmm.
you wouldn't do that otherwise.
I mean, I
That thought
wouldn't do that
wouldn't
at all now, but
well, instinctively, your body, if it's craving iron, you're looking at the dirt and your brain's like, get it. And you're like, why do I want to lick the sidewalk all of a sudden? Ah! That's how that works.
and then you're
I know
like,
that sounds
damn it.
crazy.
I paid a
Yeah.
lot of money to get into Disney and now they're taking me out.
A lot of the stuff that I say is based on personal experience.
Yep.
So
And baby, you've got a lot of it.
I do. I do. You know, it's funny. I bought my first cell phone in 1997. And it sucked because none of my friends had a cell phone until like 99. So for 2 years, I basically just had like the group's cell phone. There was nobody to call, and the texting wasn't even really a thing at that point. All this phone did for me was people be like, "Hey, I gotta call my mom. Can I borrow your phone?" That's all it ever was. Yeah. It'd be like, dude, it'd be like if you the only person that had a helicopter. It wouldn't be as much fun because everybody
Yeah.
would always be trying to get a ride on your chopper.
Yep.
It wasn't very
I mean, that's
practical.
just the case. Even if you have like a pack of gum in high school, everyone's going to flood you for that.
Oh, yeah.
You've got anything, you're getting mobbed by kids if you've got it and they don't.
I remember when I was in 6th grade, I went to a parochial school with 11 kids, and I got a pair of Air Jordans.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anybody in the school even knew who Michael Jordan was. Our basketball team was terrible, is what I'm really getting at.
Mhm.
But
And for
yeah,
those kids that are still out there, Michael Jordan is a very good basketball player from the past.
apparently he's like the third best basketball player ever, behind now, I guess, LeBron and Stephen Curry.
But neither of them could make as cool a shoes as Jordan.
Do those guys even have shoes? What is there a
I mean, they
LeBron
do, but
shoe?
yeah, there's every player has like their own shoe line. That's almost like part of the contract for like marketing with players nowadays. They got to have their own shoes.
Dude, that guy started playing basketball like on a level where we were aware of him when he was like 9, and now he's like 57 years old. He's still in the NBA. He's still one of the best players. I feel like
You're talking about Braun.
I'm talking about LeBron James. Dude.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been aware of that guy I'm going to be 47 next week, and I feel like I know that guy because I've been aware of him for so long, and I don't know. I used to like the NBA. I'm not a big NBA fan anymore. I watched Michael Jordan play as a kid and destroy the Knicks all the time.
Do you have a favorite player at any time period?
Oh yeah, Patrick Ewing was my favorite player, and then later on it would be Allen Houston.
See, I'm a diehard Celtics fan and I got into basketball the first around like 2000 to 2005. Diehard Celtics fan. So obviously my favorite player of all time is going to be Vince Carter from the Toronto Raptors.
Solid.
And that is just because I could watch any highlight video now of like pretty much any era, and I would 100% be able to pick out the one with Vince Carter in it, even if I didn't see his face or name. It's just like that guy's got a certain style from the baggy clothes era. Yeah. You know, just a lot of swagger, and the Raptors jerseys were just out of this world cool at the time. So I could always just immediately know who Vince Carter was. And I don't know why. I don't even know a lot about his stats, but I'm just like, Vince Carter gets me like smiling when I see him. So naturally that's what I gravitate to as far as
I also was down with the Vinsanity. Yeah.
No, what about Linsanity?
I don't. Is that Jeremy Lin?
Yeah, Jeremy Lin, Linsanity. Where did you miss that? That was a huge thing. He went on like a tear for what, like 30 games, I remember, and then he fell into obscurity.
Because the New York Post, I think it was, did an article, and like the headline was he had an off night, and they wrote "a chink in the armor" as the headline.
Oh yeah, dude,
remember that?
Well, I also remember like a lot of documented video of him just like not getting calls because he was like one of the only Asian dudes in the league, and he just got beat up a lot more, and refs wouldn't call it. And I was like, damn, man. Like, and he never complained. He just like get up. He was like taking the hits. He was like Cuba Gooding Jr. in what is it, Men of Honor. That's if have you seen that movie?
What I man,
First black man to become master diver. I want to get his title correct. But yeah, like in the Navy. So, and pretty much all the higher ups were against like black progression in the Navy. But
and yet there's so
similar
many
stuff.
people in this country that don't believe that there was or is systemic racism in America. They're making movies about it now.
They've been making movies about it forever, but
No,
now,
not forever.
oh, I bet this is, well, I mean, not obvious. Yes, not forever.
I think when you say forever, I think you mean in your lifetime.
Yeah, dude. There's no history before that.
No, why would there be?
I don't know. I don't see a purpose for it.
My daughter was born like 2 months after September 11th. And that might as well be the Civil War to her. Like the time from her birth and awareness to when that occurred. Yeah, whatever. You know?
Yeah, well, not even the time of her birth, but like the time of her being able to like process things properly. And that being so complex, it's just like, you know what? She's just understanding what Cheerios are. Let's give it a few more years.
Fair enough. John F. Kennedy was assassinated 12 years before I was born. When I was a kid, like in my mind, that was like 40 years ago. Like that never felt like it was in my lifetime. And it kind of was. I mean, not literally in my lifetime, but almost.
Master Chief Petty Officer Carl Brashear. That was the character that Cuba Gooding Jr. played. Master Chief Petty Officer. I wanted to get that rank correct because I don't
think I've seen that.
Very good movie. Robert De Niro, Cuba Gooding Jr.
You had me at Robert De Niro.
Really? Because I said Cuba Gooding Jr. like 3 times before that, so I guess his name doesn't have a lot of pull in your book.
Not anymore. Not since Jerry Maguire. I mean, really.
Not since Snow Dogs.
I didn't see that either.
Nobody did.
Yeah.
Nobody did.
All right.
We do have...
Before we wrap this up, I know. Because someone's got plans.
I'm sorry. I've got to focus on another American military movie and go see Top Gun 2 Maverick.
Yeah.
Because I just saw Top Gun 1 for the first time a couple days ago.
It's the only night it's playing at the theaters tonight.
Yes, but this was the night where I wasn't the person planning when we're going and getting seats. This is the seat where I don't do things.
You can't
things
leave it up to the
wrong.
numbskulls.
Yeah, no, yeah. Honestly, actually, fun story. For those listening, I haven't mentioned it yet. I got a disability that makes walking difficult, but the same guy bought tickets for us to go see. God, I can't believe I'm forgetting what it was. It wasn't the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. It was before that. But like we get there and the seats he chose were like the second row from the back and in the dead center, and it's a packed place. Oh, it was the Batman is what we saw. So the movie's already started. So it's super dark. And I'm like holding onto the railing, trying to get up to the level where we're at. And then there's like, it's like getting seats at Fenway Park. There's no legroom as it is. So I'm just like, excuse me, sorry. I'm just like falling all over these people as the movie's starting just to get to the middle seat in the way back. And I sit down and I'm just like, yeah, the seating wasn't very well thought out tonight, was it, dude? So yeah, like when it comes to movie seats, if you want it done right, get them yourself.
Yeah, 100%. You know, by the way, you brought up that you have a disability. Something happened earlier today. It was the last day of school today for the kids.
Congratulations to them.
Whatever, they're fine. They were all crying because it was weird. Everybody, like yesterday, they couldn't wait. Today, everybody was crying. I'm not going to see my friends again.
Mm-hmm.
You will at camp, and then cookouts and sleepovers, and then in a couple of months, you'll hate it again because you'll be back to seeing them every day. And that's just how it goes. But anyway, before we wrap this up, Tell me your flip phone superiority deal. Why are you saying this?
So yeah, this is something that I've been interested in, like thinking about getting a flip phone. Actually, at one point I had two smartphones, one that I would carry around with me because it had the very bare bones, like no apps on it at all, and I'd use that for phone calls and stuff. And then the other one I would use like for apps at night, so I wouldn't have social media stuff. But I've always thought that smartphones are a little too much like exposure to a lot of things that people shouldn't just be able to look
Porn?
at. And then porn, social media, just overexposure to things that they can get, that people get like dopamine hits from, quick little like highs from, and it becomes addicting. And I even took a month off of social media, but I kept like muscle memory. I kept reaching into my pocket even though like my phone had nothing on it because I deleted the apps. And the other day I was with my personal trainer, and her son, who's going into senior year of high school, has a flip phone. He just got a flip phone. He bought himself a flip phone, even though he's on his family plan. He bought himself a flip phone to use until like the sun goes down, at which like around that time he starts using his smartphone just so he can like use apps like that. He was like, it's overwhelming and I feel like I'm getting disconnected. And this is coming from a guy going into his senior year of high school. And I'm just like, this kid is either an anomaly because he's extremely smart. He's like a popular dude as well. He's not just like kind of an outcast. Like, I don't have any friends, so I just got this basic phone and stuff like that. He's like a very intelligent dude, but he's like, I feel like I'm getting disconnected from people if I have my phone on me so much. And I hate when people are on their phones with other people. I'm just like, this is one of the most mature things. So I'm almost thinking or wondering if, and this is actually something I could do a little bit more research on, um, if there's almost like a social trend, because a big issue that we're talking about, which we could actually talk about next week as well, is data protection and social media, like the dangers of social media and like misinformation. And a lot of those topics all come around overexposure with smartphones. And I just thought it was a really mature decision for him to get a flip phone to limit his smartphone exposure. And I was just curious if what we could talk about next week is there almost like a fundamental shift with phones where a lot of people might be getting over this hump culturally, where like we've got all these capabilities in our hands, but a lot of them aren't doing anything to benefit us really in the long run. Like we have a lot of tools that we're not using for the right reasons, either because of like good marketing or just how we've made them depend, how we've made ourselves dependent on certain apps. And I'd like to dive into that a little bit more because we're up against it right now. We're going to be wrapping up, so we don't have a lot of time to talk about it. But I think there's more to be said about maybe the younger generation, how they might be looking at phones and the technology we're using, and maybe looking at a better way of limiting themselves, or just if that's just something I'm noticing and connecting that's not representative of the bigger picture. But I've always thought it's a good idea to kind of cut social media or limit it in your life. But a lot of times you've got to do a lot of dedicate a lot of time to filtering out content that you don't want to see. I know on Reddit, if I open it up, I always like completely, I blocked like hundreds of subreddits that I'm just like, I don't need to see this. Like, I don't even care about this. Like, I don't like anime. I mean, I don't dislike anime. It's just like I don't understand this anime. I haven't seen it, so I don't want it popping up on my page all the time. Shout out to Studio Ghibli, awesome anime, probably the best ever, but everybody knows that. But yeah, so just like phones in general, I'd like to look at that a little bit more for next week because we ramble here sometimes, and we don't get to cover everything, but we cover a lot. So I think
Yeah,
that'll
I
be
would love
interesting.
to delve into that, and I will tell you, I've got a guy who showed me something with a flip phone, and it blew me away, and it works every time like a charm. When we get into it, I'll actually tell that story. I started talking about hot mom on last day of school. Today, the only hot mom in the group, parked at a handicap parking spot. And it occurred to me too, first of all, no one's going to say anything to her because she's very attractive. There's only 2 handicap spots in that lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought about, we were talking about the movies before, and you go to a movie theater and like the first 80 spots are all and there's nobody there ever.
First row, yeah, almost, yeah. They've even got
Mhm.
the spaces for just chairs as well, yeah.
They either have way too many or not enough. Would you agree with that? Nobody has the right amount of handicap parking spaces.
Parking spaces or spaces inside of a theater?
Parking spaces out front.
Oh, okay, parking spaces. Yeah, it was actually interesting. I went out to dinner yesterday and there were more takeout spaces than there were handicap spaces right up front. And I was like, that doesn't seem like a good system because the other ones were already full when I got there. And like, I'm not in a wheelchair, and I've still working off my COVID weight, so I could always use the extra steps. But I always think like extra too many handicap spots you might see. I don't know. Sometimes I'm always like, why do they have this many?
Yeah.
But
And then there's
other
times where you pull in and you're like, come on, one?
pretty much honestly, like that was a case that we were dealing with when I was in college. So I just pretty much park anywhere and put up the handicap tag. I even parked like literally on like the walkway to one of the main academic buildings. And when I got a ticket for it, but I argued it and they were like, this is a little blatant, man. And I was like, yeah, but you've only got 2 parking spots for the disabled right there. And they were just like, okay. But like you could push the limit. But yeah, it's always it's in that situation. I'm like, it's better to have more and not need them than to need them and not have them.
Yeah.
Especially where, because a lot of situations, people with like wheelchair vans or something, they need a lot of space, so they're almost like having to pull up or something, or just unload in a random area and then go to a completely different area. So it's sometimes it's needed, sometimes it's not. Um, I don't know. It's imperfect. There's a perfect balance a lot of the times, and when it comes to spots, you're not gonna hire a mathematician to be like, all right, for the population, how many should we calculate is the right amount? It's just like, just throw them there. Like,
Yeah.
make it. The one thing I would complain actually more about, that my grandpa complains about a lot too, it's like when they have the handicap spots like all the way at the end of a walkway, just because that's where the little dip goes. So everyone, like, there's a lot of regular, what I call normie spots, uh, right in front of the door, and the handicap spots are the available ones, but they're like 100 feet down the way because people in wheelchairs need to get up to the little incline onto the sidewalk. But if you've got a disability and you're not in a chair, then it's just like, oh, they've got to walk a shit ton of feet to get to the door. So it's kind of, there's, people do it right and wrong. But I mean, as long as they're available, as long as I have a special spot open that I don't have to pay for, I am not complaining.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad at all.
But
All
if you
right.
do uh park in a handicap spot and you're not disabled, then I will want to key your car, but I will then go back to, you just don't mess with another man's car. And I will walk inside grumpy, but I will not break that rule, because unlike baseball, unwritten rules are sometimes a good thing to have, unless it makes you look soft like it does in baseball, because my god, those unwritten rules are stupid, and they never come up unless somebody's like, hey, we're losing, I shouldn't have hit that grand slam.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to get paid.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode number 3. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all that jazz. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
we got pages on YouTube for audio, just in case you want to listen on YouTube. We've got an Instagram at Following Flames. It's pretty much at Following Flames across the board. And I'll be throwing some supplemental content up on there, maybe some links to what we talked about. I'll give you I'll post the Mike Huckabee video of him advertising the Kid's Guide to President Donald Trump. It's just so funny to watch. But yeah, there'll be a lot on there, so feel free to follow us. We'd absolutely love it, and share with whoever you'd like to. Anyone that's in the market for a new podcast, we're happy to have you, and we appreciate you listening. To those out there that are listening and enjoying the podcast thus far,
I can't wait to get more into some of this stuff. We got so much cool stuff to talk about. We'll be doing that in the weeks ahead, dropping in every Friday. Hope you enjoyed the last one. You'll definitely enjoy the next one. For Robbie
Mhm.
McCluskey, I'm Joe McGuire. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Following Flags.